Good morning. Climate change continues to contribute to extended drought, extreme heat, and severe storms. And with ignition, we have not just wildfire, but firestorms that can move from the wildland through the interface and into our communities, causing full-on conflagration, where we have structure-to-structure fire spread, where the homes themselves become the very fuel that feeds the fire, where the assets that we've built, the homes and the businesses where we've lived and thrived, actually contribute to the peril that results in disaster. Today, you're going to have the opportunity to hear about one of the most devastating fires in California. And as you hear, I want you to think about your why. Why are you here? Why are you part of this summit? Why are you part of this community? For fire chiefs, I want you to think about the leadership. Firefighters, perhaps strategic operations, logistics. For tech developers, listen for the gaps. Where do you fit? Where can you make a difference? For investors, where do you place your resources? Today, we're going to talk about January 7th. On January 7th, a fire was ignited that extended more than 2 weeks. And while there were departments from across California, across the US, across North America, and beyond who responded, there was one fire chief who rose and became the collaborative leader. He literally led through fire. This morning, I want to introduce you to Chief Anthony Maroney, the fire chief of LA County.
Well, good morning. My name's Anthony Maroney. I'm the fire chief of the County of Los Angeles Fire Department. Before I begin my formal remarks, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who's here because you're going to be part of the solution. You're going to help us identify fires more quickly, and you're going to help us respond to those fires more effectively and efficiently. I would also like to acknowledge the partners that came to my aid, to our aid, on January 7th. So I know we have members from the U.S. Forest Service that are here, our partners at CAL FIRE, our LA County municipal fire departments, in addition to the county fire departments, Orange County, Ventura County, and even San Bernardino County. So thank you. What I'm going to open up with is a video that will show you what we were experiencing that night. And then I'll go into a little bit about Los Angeles County and the LA County Fire Department. So thank you. So what I'm going to talk about is that fire siege period that we experienced in Los Angeles. Between January 7th and January 22nd, we had 12 different wildfires, some big, some small, but they all had the potential for becoming very significant. We had 31 fatalities on January 7th and into the 8th. Over 16,000 structures damaged or destroyed. 250,000 evacuations. And those 12 fires burned over 50,000 acres. We had 11,666 personnel, over 1,400 engines, and at the height of the fires, we had 76 aircraft. What we had before January 7th, when it came to what we considered a challenging incident, a bad day, we experienced the station fire in LA County in 2009. 160,000 acres, destroyed 89 structures, but even worse, it took the lives of 2 of our firefighters, Ted and Arnie, that were killed fighting the station fire back in 2009. And then we had the Woolsey, 2018, an even more devastating fire. Only 99,000 acres, but it destroyed 1,600 homes and took the lives of 3 people. Up until January 7th, up until that date, the Woolsey fire, along with the station fire, were our 2 most significant incidents. So who are we in LA County? Basically, 56% of the county is covered by the LA County Fire Department. 25% of the county is covered by the Angeles National Forest. And the remaining 19% is our local municipal fire departments. LA County is the most populous county in the United States. So we have 88 incorporated cities, 122 unincorporated areas, 4,084 square miles, and over 10.1 million residents. And this is our timeline for the fire siege. Beginning on January 7th, ending on the 22nd, we started with the first Sunset Fire at 10:11 that morning, followed by the Palisades, the Eaton, the Hearst, and then into the next day, the Woodley, the Lydia, the Sunset 2 fire, which had a tremendous potential. The Sunswept, followed by the Kenneth, the Archer, and then the Hughes, a 10,000 acre fire 15 days later, and then all capped off by the Sepulveda fire. So LA as a region, we have great protection. We have a robust network of fire agencies. So we have 30 different fire departments in Los Angeles County. We have, I believe that is over 500 fire stations. We cover over 4,000 square miles. And we have over 513 fire engines, 227 paramedic units, 107 truck companies, and we have 44 different law enforcement agencies. So we have this huge responsibility to be able to coordinate our actions. And I mentioned our partners in the beginning because as fire chief and as a lifelong firefighter, I realize that no one stands alone. And in times of crisis, we're able to rely on our partners to come to our assistance. But with that, now that I've laid out what we experienced and what LA County is and what resources we have available to us, I'd like to invite back out on stage Dr. Lori Moore Merrill.
Great job, thank you. And so what we're going to do now is a bit of an interview because I want you to hear from these chiefs, and I'm going to bring out someone that many of you already know. If you don't know him, you saw him on 60 Minutes. Chief Brian Finnessy from Orange County. Brian, will you join us, please? Very good. So it's not often that you get to have a conversation with two people of this caliber. And so what I'd like to do is sort of set the stage, and I'm going to have them, and remember the ask. Think about your why as you're listening to them as they talk about these fires and what happened. So Chief Maroney, I'm going to start with you. And I want you to talk for a little bit about what was happening before there was an ignition. Talk to us about what you were seeing, what was happening around LA, and the conversations you were having.
Yeah, well, we really started getting notified from the National Weather Service that we were going to have this, that it was setting up to be a very severe fire event, a very severe red flag, what they now call a PDS, a particularly dangerous situation. We started getting those notifications on the 2nd, Thursday the 2nd, but little did we know that it was going to be this bad. We had never experienced this before. I thought, that the LA region was too big. We had too many resources. We have over 9,500 firefighters in Los Angeles County. That's a lot of firefighters spread over, 30 different fire departments. I didn't think that we could experience a wildfire-initiated community conflagration. But the weather was worse than we anticipated. And the meteorologist is the only person that's right about half of the time and still has a job. But the National Weather Service called it right. It was life-threatening and destructive winds. And that's what we experienced that day into the next day. But we had to make some calls on the fly that morning.
Yeah. And one of the calls you made was before you had an ignition.
Correct. Yeah, one of the calls that we made, so we had prepared, we had augmented our staffing, we had pre-deployed, we had additional resources from the U.S. Forest Service that were available to us. We had additional resources from CAL FIRE that actually sent some strike teams down to Los Angeles in preparation. They pre-deployed resources, in addition to us augmenting our staffing. But that morning I got a call from my chief deputy, John O'Brien, and he said, the wind is so bad where he lives in the San Gabriel Valley that he recommended that I recall or force hire the off-going shift. So we have 176 fire stations in LA County. We have 900 personnel on duty per day. He recommended that we hold the off-going shift and staff all of our available resources, all of our available reserve and unstaffed resources. And that was a big deal. That was a big thing to say yes to, because we've never recalled 900 people before. All of these firefighters had places to go that day. They had things to do. They had plans. And it came to me as the fire chief to make a decision to spend $1.8 million in overtime, which I was going to have to answer to later, and to recall 900 people, but there was no fire yet. This was just based on the wind that we were experiencing. And for a moment, I thought selfishly about myself and my reputation and my legacy. Do I want to be the chief that recalls 900 people and then nothing happens? But I quickly thought that, my responsibility is to the public we serve, to our residents. And in an abundance of caution, we did. We recalled the off-going shift. We staffed all of our available resources. And basically, in 2 hours and 11 minutes later, we had our first fire start. And it was a bad day that turned into an even more tragic day later that evening when when the Eaton fire began. And then the third fire, the Hearst fire.
So it all unfolded very quickly.
Very quickly.
Yeah.
And, we're prepared for one fire. We can get by on a second fire, but by the third fire, the Hearst fire, we were out of resources. We were staffing. We had about 80 vacant fire stations. We were answering the 1,200 calls that we normally get day in and day out. And we were staffing the three fires, the Palisades, the Eaton, and the Hearst. And we were out of resources. And when I say nobody stands alone, we certainly didn't stand alone, because all of those partners that I mentioned earlier came to our assistance.
Let's talk to one of them. So Chief Finney, did Chief Maroney call you?
We talked that morning, myself, Chief Crowley, the LA City Chief, and the Ventura County Chief. We have a weekly meeting that's been going on since the Woolsey fire, and I think the tone that morning was not if, it's like who's gonna host the first fire. And as tragic as it certainly was in LA County, those winds were blowing the same in San Bernardino County, Riverside, Ventura, Orange. in many ways, Southern California, I know it sounds terrible, but dodged a bullet because it could have been a whole lot worse had there been other ignitions. But yeah, we share resources across our borders as if there are no borders. And so yeah, we had a lot of conversations, quick conversations that day.
And you sent resources.
We sent a lot of resources. The first fire that day was for us was Palisades, and when Chief Crowley texted myself, Chief Gardner in Ventura County, and Chief Maroney, she asked for help and sent one picture, and it was a picture of a fire that had just started. You could tell the wind was starting to blow the column, and I think she was a little back on her heels. I was like, well, what do you need? And she really wasn't sure, so we sent her, I think, 20 engines, 2 helicopters, a couple of hand crews. I know Chief Gardner sent resources, and where do you want them? Outside the normal mutual aid process, just to get resources going.
But you two knew this was different. You've done this and you share resources, and like you said, you have fires are not unusual for you, but this one was different. What were the early indicators, or what were some of the challenges that you had early on, Tony, that you knew this was going to be different?
Well, we had a PDS before that didn't materialize into a wildfire. But that morning, when I got called by my chief deputy, I realized that what they were experiencing, 30 or 40 miles from where I live, was really significant. And that's what led us to, hold that off-going shift and start to staff. When Chief Crowley did put out the text that she needed assistance, I drove out to the Palisades fire. And it was a very significant fire. It burned out of LA City into LA County. It was making big runs. We were trying to get as many personnel there. We knew that Northern California was sending us resources in addition to the Southern California resources and the LA County resources. And we were committed to that firefight. But like I said, my bad day got even worse at right around 6:18 when I received a call from our Command and Control Division that we had a second start in Eaton Canyon, and it was significantly stronger winds. The beginning winds in Los Angeles that day were 40 to 60 miles an hour. When the Eaton fire began, the winds were 80 to 100 miles an hour. So they almost doubled.
And these were two different communities.
Two,
the structures were
absolutely,
different,
yeah.
yes?
Yes, yeah.
And so the fuel load was therefore different. Is that
Correct, but they were both, when you look at fire history and you look at the Marshall Fire, the Lahaina Fire, the Camp Fire, it truly was a wildfire-initiated community conflagration. Neither one of those communities had ever experienced the fire moving through block to block like the Palisades or the Eaton. Now, the Palisades Fire had much better construction because it was newer. The Altadena area, the Eaton area, the Eaton Fire area, was an older community. Homes built in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s. There was no real home hardening. They were built to code at the time, but they were existing non-conforming structures. And when you talk about the structure becoming part of the fuel load and becoming part of the ember cast and what's generating our challenges, those homes that were catching fire home to home to home certainly overwhelmed us, and they outpaced us. We could not keep up.
And with saying that, overwhelmed and outpaced, and I've heard you say that before.
Overwhelmed, yeah,
And there are not enough firefighters, there weren't enough firefighters in the country to have stopped this fire. So some of those challenges that you had early on, and everybody saw in the media, the water challenges, let's talk about that for a second. You had the water challenges first. Brian, I know you came in because you have family in the area, and heroically, you put out a fire without water, actually. So let's just talk about the water challenges for a moment.
Yeah, we had two different situations, and I don't want to, at the Palisades Fire, there's a notion that they ran out of water, that the 1-million-gallon tanks, the 3-million-gallon tanks ran dry. There was a reservoir, the Santa Ynez Reservoir, 117 million gallons. That was empty. It was the cover was being repaired, so they had a lack of water problem at the Palisades in the city. In the county, we never really ran out of water in District 29, but we did at the Eaton Fire experience pressure problems. Not that we ran out of water, but the water pumps, the pump houses, that fed the system and that pressurized the system, those pump houses were burning down. So we had a water pressure problem. Either way, when a firefighter opens up a hydrant and water doesn't come out, whether due to no water or a lack of pressure, the result is the same.
Yeah.
Our firefighters prioritized the protection of life and the rescue of people who couldn't evacuate over structure defense and perimeter control. The Eaton fire, although it was only 14,000 acres, it took 19 lives and burned down about 10,000 structures in about 16 hours because of those 100-mile-an-hour winds. That inability, that lack of resources, it was the second fire we were staffing, and little did we know we were going to respond to the third fire, the Hearst fire
Right.
that evening, which had a huge potential of impacting residents in LA City.
Brian, let me come to you. Challenges with this fire and what you witnessed, because you were there. What do you see coming at us next? I mean, what are the challenges going forward?
I was there in an unofficial capacity.
You're a brother.
My brother's house, I grew up in Altadena, about 2 blocks from Eaton Canyon, and ultimately lost our childhood home and all our schools, and many friends are still recovering from the losses. But this is not the first time we've had a 100-mile-an-hour wind clocked. I've been a wildland firefighter since 1978, started on the Angeles back on a hot shot crew, and in 1980 we had the Panorama fire that burned 300 homes on Running Springs, San Bernardino County, and that was the big fire then, that nobody could believe we lost 300 homes. And at the time they were running air tankers out of Ontario Airport, and they clocked 100-mile-an-hour gusts down there, and we swore that would probably never happen again, and it didn't for a while. And so, to your question, I can't, and I know there's a lot of people in this room that have been in the fire service for many decades. Every time we say this was an anomaly and it won't happen again, it happens again. I think of the 2003 Cedar Fire in San Diego County. That was the largest fire in California for, I think, almost a decade, maybe a little bit more. Far eclipsed now. So when you hear people say, well, that 80, 100-mile-an-hour wind, that's not going to happen again. You watch. That is going to happen again. And I felt, and I'll kind of end with this, my hat's off to Tony's firefighters and everybody engaged in that. And it was sad to see the criticism that many of the firefighters or the agencies took. And I kind of liken it to, I don't see the firefighters, not stopping tornadoes or hurricanes, being criticized for that. And this literally was that.
Yes.
And we're going to pay for it for a long time. That the firefighters that ate that smoke, that structure smoke for days on end, as a structure firefighter too, we wouldn't engage in anything like that without a SCBA or respirator. Those firefighters were out in that, eating that smoke and eating that stuff for days on end.
With no respiratory protection.
No respiratory protection. I think we're going to be, much like we've seen after post 9/11, we're going to be experiencing ramifications of that.
I concur. So we're out of time for this segment. However, I think you probably all are wanting to hear more, yeah? So we're going to be back in here at 2 o'clock today with these two chiefs, and it'll be not only opportunity for me to ask them a few more questions so you can hear what really happened, but you get to ask questions as well. So join us back in here at 2 o'clock this afternoon. We're going to continue. So this is just a little teaser for you. Join us back this afternoon. Please help me.
Thank you.
Thank you.